Hello and welcome to Fated. My name's Majella.
And I'm Carlie, and in this episode, we are going to be doing a deep dive, debrief, review, conversation about the debut novel, Powerless, from Lauren Roberts, which we've both now read. So I read it on my summer break. Majella read it, I don't know, maybe a few weeks ago. And we both really, really enjoyed it. So we wanted to have a chat about that. So, spoiler alert, everybody, spoiler alert if you haven't read it. Powerless is book one. Reckless is coming in July 2024, which I'm really excited about and have already pre-ordered. Have you got that ready to roll, Majella?
I have not pre-ordered it, no.
Finally,
but I will be purchasing it when I come back.
But before we dive in, let's talk about what we're reading right now.
I am currently reading a series by Anne Bishop, which is, allegedly there have been claims that it is, I guess, the inspiration for a lot of Sarah J. Maas's world. And so I was really curious about that because obviously I love ACOTAR and Throne of Glass and Crescent City. So I was really interested in this series that was written 10 years before that, but has zero hype. But I think if you were a true fantasy reader, you would have come across it because she has like so many reviews on Amazon. So I am up to book 5. So I will be reading that one, and they're about 450 pages long. So they're not a huge book, but they're not tiny. And they just keep getting more compelling. Like I feel like I read the first one, was quite hesitant, messaged Carlie, was like, oh my God, I think it might be too dark for me. And then next minute, I'm 4 books in going like, holy moly, can't stop. Luckily that the kind of really icky darkness aspect of the plot has dissipated. So it's much more back to sort of like true magic and politics and war and fighting for the good of all, that kind of thing. And I am doing still, because Crescent City 3 comes out, I am still doing a bit of a reread of 1 and 2 and just picking out chunks, as I was telling Carlie. It's definitely not a full reread, but more like reacquainting myself with characters and plot points that I feel like I need to know going into the third one. What about you?
What's the Anne Bishop series called? Has it got like a title? The something?
I don't know. The Daughter of the Blood is the first one, and I feel like that's what they refer to as the series, the Daughter of the Blood. But I mean, okay, the actual names sound very similar. It's like Daughter of the Blood, Heir to the Shadows, Queen of the Darkness, like this.
Yeah.
So there's, but I also, to be fair, a lot of fantasy romantic books have those kind of, so I don't think anyone can claim. And I do think there's a lot of inspiration taken and ideas, shared collectively without,
of course,
knowing.
Of course.
But, it is interesting. It is interesting. But yes.
It's so interesting now. You type in A Court of, and there's so many books that are a court of something and something. So yeah, totally. That's fun. Okay, so I have just started. I'm about 200 pages into the Tandem read. If you're watching the video on Spotify, look at that chunkiness. So we've got like, I don't know, 6 million pages here to read, and I've tabbed the Tandem read. And I'm really excited to begin the Tandem read. It's like I'm going off on my own epic adventure, and I'm prepared. But tell you what, walking around my house with these two, because I read on the back deck, I read in the kitchen while I'm cooking, like this is an interesting thing. I've never done a Tandem read before, ever. So I'm, excited. I'm excited to see and feel what it feels like to jump between 2 stories on the same timeline. So they don't overlap, done on the same timeline. One from Kale's perspective and Aylin's. So that's what I'm reading right now. And my husband thinks I'm absolutely crazy because I get into bed and I like pull them out and I'm like swapping between It's like, what are you doing?
Because we talked about
The
it.
other
I
thing I
didn't do
just
the tandem
remembered
read.
that I'm reading is a link that Majella sent me, which is the fanfic. So the Reese fanfic writing from Akatar. So I actually tried to start reading it a couple of weeks ago when she first sent it to me, and I really struggled to get back into that world and to reacquaint myself with that kind of writing. And also, of course, it's different. It's a slightly different writing because it's a different author. But I'm, I think, the third chapter of that fanfic, and it's pretty dang good. I'm enjoying that. So thank you for sending me that.
Yes, that was surprising because I haven't done any fanfics, even though we both want to do Manacled, which is basically like the most intense fanfic ever.
Yeah.
So like, so 0 to like, 1,000. But I was on a TikTok or something, and someone was had showed that they had printed the fanfic and bound this book, and it was Reese's perspective from basically when Feyre was back in the Spring Court. I was Reese realizing that that's his mate and bringing her into the Night Court, and which was great because you get a sense of what he's thinking and feeling because you're getting Feyre's perspective of it and the general kind of plot, but hearing it from his perspective. And I watched a video where the author of the fanfic talked about how she literally has the book next to her and like writes line for line, so she knows exactly. So the Sarah J. Maas will be like, Reese and gave a cheeky grin or something, and then so she will write what he was thinking while he had that cheeky grin. So it is so accurate. Faye, it was just so nice to go back into that world for a little moment and just be like, oh, like it's so nice to be back with
So
you.
took me about a chapter, I think, just to ease back into that. But yeah, really enjoying that. I wonder, we can just put that link up, couldn't we, in the show notes? That's a free, anyone can read it. Let's do Powerless. So
Yes.
your thoughts, initial overall thoughts about the book, your enjoyment level, what you liked about it. Let's start there.
I feel like I read it in this kind of run of an or two book series. So like they either only had one book out or it was a duology. So I wasn't jumping from a big series into like a single book. And they were all not similar, but I was very kind of in that kind of romanticy, tropey, like I was here for all of it. I was very like, yes, the female character, troubled, angsty, very hot, love interest who may or may not be her enemy. But I just kind of went into it sort of with an open mind, but really wanting that kind of book. So I have just done a quick reread before this. Again, that sort of skimming. And it was just fun. It was fun. It was easy to read. It was fast. I felt like I really liked Hayden, and I really liked Kai, and quickly. So I feel like and I guess the world building and the magical system, it wasn't overly complicated. There was kind of, that caste system again. There was the people up in power, and our female protagonist, she is poor or is struggling, is not one of the elite in society, and obviously her love interest is the prince, is part of the royal family. So I really enjoyed it. I just thought it was fun and light. It was almost light in a way. Like it didn't require a lot of me. It was in a very similar writing style and pacing and energy that I was used to, but sort of a little bit more stripped back. I think we've discussed this as well. Sarah J. Maas and now this Anne Bishop, they're massive world building, and there is complicated plots and characters coming from everywhere, and past and future and multiple timelines. It's all happening. Whereas Powerless, as other books similar to, I guess, I'll try and think of a few books that I would put in that same thing, but it was just one world,
Yeah.
sort of a Hunger Games esque energy of like people pitted against each other in challenges and conquests and battles in a way to win a prize. And that was basically it. And there's going to be three, right, in the trilogy, and there's one coming out in July. So I could see where it could go, but I also think that it wasn't so complicated that I felt like you could turn it into six. It was like, yes, I can see how you could span this over three. I feel like I could read them all in a weekend if I had them all together, because they're like, kind of
Yeah.
easy consumption, and different, but not different enough that I was, kind of, this is so unique and I'm blown away. But I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Ditto. Can I just like just say exactly what Majella said? That's pretty much that is correct for me too. Um, it is interesting when you're diving out of another world and into a new one. It always is, and that is like that. No shade on the book that you're jumping into. It just is. So for me, I'm really deep into Throne of Glass. I'd come off Queen of Shadows, and then I was like, oh, I'll jump into this. And it did take me probably the first, I don't know, maybe even a third of the book to be, is this a world that I really want to go and jump into? Yes. I think what got me was Kai. Like, I liked Payton. It was tropey, at the start. It was like, yeah, we've seen this before. We've seen the trials before. I was like, oh God, I did have a moment where I messaged Majella. I was like, are all fantasy books just going to have this same like Hunger Games trials? She has to kill all the people to win, which is similar to obviously Throne of Glass. But no, I was just having a moment when I messaged her and said, "Are they all going to be like this?" Because I'm scared. I think I said to you, I'm scared that I'm going to get sick of this kind of genre if they're all like this. And Majella, very wisely, having been a longer time reader of fantasy, was like, no, they're all different. It's okay. You'll be fine. Keep going. So yeah, I really liked it. I think Kai was the character that really got me. I do love main character that is meant to be, awful and evil and gruff and horrible and a monster that really underneath was incredibly flirtatious and hot. His dialogue, the banter between them, that really got me. So I think that's when that hooked me in, when I could see where Kai was going to go. He was, for me, actually more of an interesting character maybe than Payton. But yeah, enjoyed it.
Or maybe more unpredictable.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Well, I also think it was interesting with the brother. Like, I felt like the brother kind of came in, and I felt like that, like, I really liked that sort of, there was this other good looking royal who was also a bit, they'd both grown up under this very oppressive, kind of domineering king. But they'd both been pushed down very different paths. So the older brother had been pushed down the diplomatic path. He was very good looking and took after the dad, the blonde hair, and was tall, and Kai had been pushed down the path of the executioner, so the path of pain and force, and he was dark hair and had the grey eyes, and had to kind of carry out the dirty work of the country, or the realm. But both of them seemed like really good men, and they had, especially when they had done some flashbacks to what their childhoods had been like, or especially Kai, the king had kind of sort of molded him or broken him into a man that could be the executioner, like, of the killing arm of the king in a way, but he hadn't broken that sort of gentle and kind and sweetness that was under there. Like, he didn't want to walk that path, but he also didn't want his brother to have to walk that path, so he would rather have walked the path of the pain and being the executioner than put his brother through that because one of them had to. So there was that kind of, both, even though they're royalty, neither of them are living the life they want. Neither of them are happy. The brother also sort of likes Peyton, is like, or is attracted to her at the very least. This because Peyton is strong and feisty and has this beautiful body and a resting face with these like blue eyes. And so in a way, I felt terrible for the brother because he doesn't get her. Yeah. He doesn't end up being the main love interest, and you find out that when he couldn't live up to being the son that his dad, the king, wanted, he was really broken by that. Whereas Kai had almost made peace with the fact that he's like, I didn't choose this. My father has made me into this weapon, and I didn't choose. I don't want to impress him with this. I don't want to be good at this. I'm doing this because I don't want my brother to do it. So there was this kind of beautiful, complicated story underneath it where these people that perception is that they've got these perfect lives, they're royalty and they're both good looking and they've got countless women and they will inherit the land and they're protected from, and they both possess very good magic in different ways, and they're both very, very unhappy.
Yeah, but it was really interesting. They're both very likable. I liked both the brothers, whereas in a lot of series there's usually one brother you like and one brother you detest. There's one brother that you're just really drawn to and one that's really, really repulsive and disgusting. Whereas I was like, ooh, and there were points where I was like, oh, which way will she go here? But I'm very glad she chose Kai. But yeah, I really liked, what was the other brother's name? I've gone totally blank.
Oh, yes. It was like...
I've read 2 books since then. I don't remember. Anyway, we'll look that up. So
funny.
Let's do a little bit of
D. I thought it started with a D.
I guess so part of the plot obviously is, or main part of the plot is the, this idea that you have a kingdom where the king just wants elite people. So they're called the elites, literally. I think that's a thing that was coming up for me, was like, it was very literal. And you could tell it was, her first novel. It's very young adult, but also that made it really easy to understand and really easy to read as well. But you've got the elites and basically, this king just wants these extraordinary people in his kingdom. And so anyone that doesn't have magic or doesn't have powers is considered an enemy and gets killed by the king's enforcer, which is Kai. And the plague, like there'd been a plague that had gone through. Is that the right book here?
Who has a plague?
The powers the elites have possessed for decades were graciously gifted to them by the plague, though not all were fortunate enough to both survive the sickness and reap the reward. I knew there was a plague in there somewhere. So those that are born...
I don't remember the plague at all.
Because I remember thinking, like, it's kind of like post-pandemic, what we've kind of gone through in the last couple of years. I was totally trying to relate it to our current day, scenario.
Sure. Where is our magic, Carlie? Where is your magic?
No. But those, it's there somewhere. But those born, so they call them the ordinaries and the elites, and those born ordinary are just that, ordinary. Like, it's terrible language, but it's like, that's what it was. And so the king decrees that all the ordinaries are to be banished to preserve this kind of elite society that he wants.
Yes.
And so Peyton, our protagonist, our female main character, is really, hiding out, pretending to have this psychic ability that her beautiful father taught her to use, which was really just about reading people and body language and listening and taking in.
Very observant. And he was the leader of the rebellion, but she didn't find that out till later. But, so it was kind of, she was born to do this.
She was born to do this. So she's in the slums at the start of the story, and she actually ends up saving Kai's life and beating this character called a silencer, and no one could do that. The silencers were like so powerful, they could silence people's minds, and he was nearly killing Kai, and then Peyton runs in and does her thing because she's not affected by the silencer, because she's an ordinary, but no one knows. So that was great. Like, it was very clever from Lauren to come up with this whole system. Again, I, continually blown away by how people create these storylines, and yeah, blows my mind, especially at such a young age, 20, 21, however old Lauren is at the moment. Really,
I
really
think she
cool.
wrote it when she was 20, yes, and
So
she's
good.
now 21. And to just get the whole thing done. I know that Sarah J. Maas wrote the first, or came up with Throne of Glass when she was 16. But, she didn't write the whole series when she was 16. She started with the overarching idea and then she started to write it. But, I just think any author who can sort of come up with something that has a unique aspect to it, because obviously there are some tropes that run through this, but she's just come up with something interesting and unique, and she's come up with two or more very likable characters. You are rooting for their love story. You, especially Kai, you do want him, like, you're like, oh, he deserves some happiness, and he deserves to be with someone who looks at him like he is magnificent,
Yeah.
which is what he didn't get growing up. And she had the opposite, almost like a dad who loved her so much and taught her these things. And she knew she was loved, and she knew that anything was possible because he had told her, this is how you can do it. You're smart, you're strong, you're wise. You just need to be able to survive. And here's the way to do that. I think that people can get really particular about writing, and they can get very, like, once you've almost got it in your head that it's a certain way, if you're like, this writing is amazing, like, you'll kind of gloss over bits that maybe aren't amazing. And then if you kind of get stuck being like, oh, this is terrible, or like, this sentence construction is awful, then it can be hard to switch out of that too, and you start only noticing the things that are not working. Because I know that there has been some reviewers who haven't loved her writing, and that have mentioned that it does feel like she's a little inexperienced. And I'm like, she is young, but she's written
Yeah.
a book. How many books have you written? And
And it's a
like,
young
and it
adult.
was so, yes, exactly.
Like, it's for young adults. So I think, it is for 16, 17, 18, 19 year olds to be reading and to be like moving out of young fiction into young adult. It's not even in the new adult kind of um, subcategory either. So I think it fits beautifully there. I think she balanced um, character building, action, world building, the detail around the magic system. I think she balanced all that really well. It was compelling, engaging, and enjoyable. Um, but spice meter, it's really, really low because it's young adult. So I've seen some people saying, wanted more action and wanted more sex scenes and wanted more detail. And I was like, it's not that category of book. Um, but for me, there was enough spice. Hello, Kai. Like, hello, I'm there for it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think it was quite emotional spice in a way too. Like, I
Mm.
felt like we were quite invested in those characters. I know, because it wasn't a straight road to get to each other. So I feel like there was tension and there was slow burn, and then there was like a lot of longing and hunger, especially on Kai's side, and this feeling of like, just when they write a character where the man wants the woman so much but is still able to be restrained and I guess elegant in how he pursues her, because he wasn't ever aggressive, or like, I know we joke about how much we love it when a man goes feral, but it's like it's kind of, you have to have the rest of it before that moment in the bedroom where it is very kind of like animalistic or primitive. It hits that sweet spot, is because there's so much respect and genuine admiration, and that and also a holding back of like, I need to do this at a pace or in a way that suits the female. Like, I want to do this in a way that she
You just
will love it, as opposed to, I just have to have sex because I want her so much because she is so hot,
yeah, it's so
So I
good.
think
And
that that was a beautiful blend of all of that.
we've got to remember as well, like, this was all developing through the purging trial. So he was meant to kill her. He was meant to kill her on many occasions. So to have this love story developing, this attraction developing, whilst he's meant to win the purging trials, because the king wants him to win, obviously, to confirm that his enforcer is in fact, up for the job. Uh, that was an interesting way to play out the love story, that he was actually in the trials with her, meant to kill her, and they partner up. So yes, we want our men wild and feral and like possessive and aggressive at times, but how beautiful was it, like watching him patch her up when she was injured and having this softness as well. I just think Lauren did a really great job. Again, I'm like, a 20-year-old wrote this stuff. A 20-year-old was able to engage a very wide or vast kind of range of ages, like these women in their 40s and 50s reading this book and still loving it and still, chomping at the bit for the second installment. So bloody great job, Lauren. Like, amazing. And we have to talk about the ending, don't we? Like, so what's going to happen? Because Kai has realized, right, that she is an ordinary. And that's
And
not
also,
okay.
it was all filmed too, so everyone knows, like, in that last trial, like, they had the, whatever they called them, the people that went round who, which was such an interesting, like, concept too. Like, you had these people, seers, who would go and record the action, and then it would be like communicated back into the big, like, coliseum where everyone was waiting, and so people could watch all the little, like, very reality TV. Like, here's this couple having a fight over here, here's another person getting killed, here's this person trekking through the trees, here's, like, Kai and Peyton, here's him protecting her, and you could see that he's not fighting her, he's not going to kill her, he's not going to kill her to win, like, he's keeping her alive and giving her his magic, or giving her the ointment to make sure she doesn't die, that he would have needed potentially to stay alive.
Yeah.
So I think he's got to be part of the breakdown of the entire system. Like, her, like, she is predictably there to be rebellious, to break this system that only works for the elites, and doesn't even work for the elites, right? Because they're starting to have problems with breeding. Like, they can't, or the magic isn't necessarily always reproducing as they assumed. Like, the people aren't getting stronger, as they continue. So I think that the problem is now, like, how does Kai, like, undo his whole upbringing, and patch up what's happened with his brother, because his brother's now taken over, and is broken and has been rejected by Peyton, and there's so much deception everywhere. Everyone's not really telling the truth, and Peyton let everyone in she took advantage of Kit's sort of friendliness and willingness to show her around and be open and trusting, and she kind of was like, thank you, I will take the keys to the castle and I will let in all these people, and there will be bloodshed, because it is wrong that all these lesser class citizens are being exterminated. They're not valuable as anything. Like, they're not even valuable just to be a human having a life. They're not worth it. They have to be banished and killed. Like, it is baffling. Like, it is baffling that you could think that way, that there is such little value given to this whole race of people.
Yeah, definitely. There's elements of this story that you can extrapolate out into the real world. Absolutely. Anything that it was missing for you, or anything that you would have loved? For me, there were moments where I was like, oh, would any of the ordinaries survive a moment in the purging trials? Really, they seemed to have, like, and why would they go in it as well against these incredibly powerful elites? Like, so that, for me, sometimes I was like, oh, that's a stretch. But again, the way I read is like, just go with it. Don't overanalyze it. So there might have been, I don't know, if there was some gaps or some holes there that I would have loved to have been filled in a little bit more about the motivation around that. That did feel a little bit like a stretch, but that's probably, it for me. What about you? Anything that you want to see happen or wish that had happened?
I feel like I'm very quick to leave logic and
Yeah.
reality.
I'm asking you a logical question. Sorry.
the plot holes can be large. I don't really care. I'm definitely not the person to be like fact checking things or trying to make sure, if there was a book process, you would not be asking me to be like,
No.
read this so that like we have like cohesion through the timelines and the plot points. I'd just be like, my God, I don't know what's happening, but I am feeling it all and I am here for it. And I'd be like, yes, but we've just jumped like 70 years. How is that person even still alive? And I'd be like, I didn't even think of that because I was just like, yeah, but they've just had hot sex. So
All right.
that'll be good. And also, I think because I have just recently read the Serpents of Night, the Nixia series with Carissa Broadbent, and she, the main character there is a human in a world of vampires where they sleep at different hours, they survive off her blood, they have wings, all these kind of things, they have heightened senses they can smell and they can hear your pulse and that kind of stuff. So I feel like because she's in the trials, so I had to let that go and be like, yeah, she's good with a knife, but like she literally, like, if she bleeds, like she is like a grenade she's basically like, here, I'm a meal, come and get me. I don't remember, like, I feel like when I first read it, I read it so fast and it was so fun. It was like just watching like a movie like Mean Girls, or where it's like it kind of all comes together well. It's so enjoyable. Yes, there's cliches and there's some tropes and everything, but like it had a little bit of fashion in the, like the gowns from the kind of events, it had the really sweet best friend. It had a little bit of kind of devastation and heartbreak, but not so much that like I needed to recover to be like that is bad, like that should not have happened, why would you kill that cat, like, oh, but and then a little bit of like, oh, I don't like that character at all, I'm glad she died. So there was this whole, like, I felt like I went on enough of a kind of emotional ride through that I didn't necessarily want more plot points or want more world building. I felt like it was quite a emotional and relationship driven book. It's kind of like, yes, here are the things. There's a bit of a rebellion and there's like a tier system here and there's some angst here and some family drama. But really, there's like a hot girl and a hot guy and they are really into each other but pretending they're not. So
and they shouldn't be together. Everything suggests they shouldn't be together, but they still want to be. And I wonder in the second book if there'll be more of an opportunity for Lauren to go deeper into the world, into the magic system, into the rebellion. I'm really curious to see where that goes and how that works with her father's accomplices as well. So there's huge promise here. She's got huge potential to be a really great author into the future with fantasy. So excited for Reckless. Yeah. Highly going, this is young adult. This is where this sits. You're not going to have full-on spice sex scenes. You're not going to have, epic world building. But, it's a fun, engaging, interesting read with enough spice to make you, maybe want to, enter the purging trials yourself to meet Kai.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there would be anyone that would make me want to enter those purges. Like, they sounded so horrific. Like, I was like, there's just no way that we would survive. Like, none. Zero, zilch. We would be dead before the first trial was over. So there would be no, like, I would have better luck being like Kai's butler or like, handmaiden or chef or like handler of his horse or something, or like if I worked in like the weaponry department and I got to like sharpen his axes, I would have more luck meeting him and being like, hey, than actually in the purging trials.
Well, sharpen his axes. Is that a euphemism? Look, I would have just gone straight for pulling out all of my seduction techniques, which are very few, to try to just get him to partner up with me and protect me and save me. I'd just be hiding behind Kai the whole time.
But I think that you wouldn't know that he was a good person if you hadn't heard his, like, to the world, he's the enforcer. So he is like violent and brutal and bloodthirsty. Like, I think that whole inside aspect that we are privy to,
Yeah.
you wouldn't know that if we had just seen, we'd just be like, he's a hot prince. And in which case we probably would have gone for the more approachable, friendlier prince, Kit, because he is also very good looking, but seems to like be, you know, like softer and less bloodthirsty.
Do love a challenge though, Majella. I do love a challenge. I did love that whole scene as well when he is meant to go and kill the ordinary child that he finds at that family's home under the floorboards, and you find out that he's actually helping them flee to a certain place that I, again, can't remember.
Across the desert.
Hot in the desert, yeah. So, yeah, that'll be an interesting development too, because I'm thinking, well, all those people have been sent. Some of them probably have survived. Will they be part of the rebellion? Will they come back and fight? So there's plenty of plot points left loose to explore in book 2 and 3. So we'll come back and, dive into those when they're released, I guess.
Yeah, I'm wondering if she will, because 3 books is quite, like, you have to have quite a few plot points in 3 books. I wonder if she'll do the whole, they will have to be separated for a time to come back together, because 3 books all together, I mean, I'm there for the love story, but like, you know, if they're happily ever after and just trying to stay alive.
I don't have my Kindle with me, but that's how it ended, right? Like, so she's run away, like she's fled.
Yes, but they both still have feelings for each other. Totally. And I feel like he's kind of like, I can't kill you, and she's like, I don't want to kill you, and he knows that the system is wrong, and she is trying to change the system. I totally forgot that she had left. I was like, wow,
Yes, so they're separate, absolutely. So there's plenty of time for her to be off doing her thing on her timeline, him to be doing his thing at the castle, and then to hopefully come back and be with each other. But we will see. Okay, it's a great read.
It's worth a read though. I would definitely recommend it. You know, I enjoyed it. It was a rollicking good read.
It was a rollicking good read. There you go.
Right. It felt like it really like kept you moving. Like it wasn't ponderous, slow, or too heavy.
I was excited to get to bed every night and read it. So that to me is an indication of a good book.
Yes.
Great. Well, add it to your TBRs if you haven't. If you have read it, we'd love to hear what you thought about it. So make sure you message us on any of our platforms. All right.
Great. Good chats. Lots to talk about in the future.
Yes.
So,
see you soon.
We'll be back.
Bye for now.
Ciao.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope that you felt like you were eavesdropping on a conversation that you have been dying to have with someone to discuss all the tiny details and possible plot twists of the books that you've recently read. Perhaps you don't have someone to chat to after you finish one of those epic books, so please give the show a follow, and we would be honoured to be your book-obsessed friends. But mostly though, we hope it was fun, it gave you a giggle, it made you gasp, or encouraged you to pick up a different author. Please share it with someone who you think would also love it, and drop us a review, letting us know what you loved and what you want to hear from us in the future. We will be back with another episode soon. Happy reading.